Okay, dear students, hello and welcome to this video lecture series on behalf of Project SATHEE, CLAT SATHEE, and today we are going to discuss the first three defenses that we have under the topic of general exception. In the last class, in the beginning of this module, we discussed what is a general exception and why it is called general exception and what are the justifiable and excusable exceptions that are there in the BNS, Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. And today we are going to discuss three of them. Okay, so let's begin without any further ado. Okay, the first things first, every exception, the provision for exception starts with nothing is an offense. Obviously, it talks about a blanket immunity given to the accused person. First and foremost, it says nothing is an offense if done by a person who is legally bound by something to do, bound by a law to do the same. मतलब अगर आपको कानून कुछ करने के लिए बाध्य करता है तो वो काम कभी भी ऑफेंस नहीं होगा. Very plain and simple. If you do something that is perfectly legal in the sense that law commands you to do it, then it cannot be considered a crime. Like for example, let's say police is there and some crime is happening in front of him. Obviously, he is bound to intervene. So something that you are bound to do cannot be considered a crime at no point of time. The simplest example of it is, suppose if you are a soldier and your superior officer says fire. Now what you are supposed to do? Everyone will say without any doubt, we will do what our superior officer commands. We'll open fire. So suppose that there was some illegality, someone died, something happened because of that. What is your responsibility? The answer is you have no responsibility. N number of times, many things go sideways. The police personnel, when they are doing something, army personnel, they are doing something, there is collateral damage. But we do not punish the people for doing that because that is something that they are bound to do. So if something you are bound to do, obviously that cannot be a crime. आप अगर एक जेसीबी के ड्राइवर हैं और आपको म्युनिसिपल कमिश्नर ने कहा बिल्डिंग तोड़ दो, तो क्या करेंगे? बिल्डिंग तोड़ देंगे. अब वो बिल्डिंग तोड़ना का आदेश सही था, गलत था, you have nothing to do with it. Okay? Obviously, you cannot be prosecuted for destroying that building because you had an order of municipal commissioner. Nobody can ask you कि आपने क्यों तोड़ा. मैंने कहा सर मेरी बुद्धि लगाने की जरूरत ही नहीं थी. I am legally bound by the instruction of municipal commissioner. I did so. So that is why we say that this is a perfect exception that if a person is bound by law to do something, then whatever he does is never a crime. Okay. That being said, let's talk about justified acts. Justified acts, see, bound by law means you had a duty to do that act. Means if you have not done it, there would have been some repercussions. Like, or suppose on a battlefield or simple in a counter-insurgency operation or any operation, if you're a soldier, the superior officer commands you fire. And if you don't obey him, that is a crime. He can punish you for insubordination. The army court can punish you for insubordination, desertion, and number of possibilities are there. If I am bound to do something, if by not doing I will incur some liability. So ये हो गया बच्चों bound by law. Justified by law means something that you have a right to do under the law. And it can be anything. Like a police person is justified by law to arrest someone who he thinks is a criminal, who he thinks has committed a crime. He goes and he arrests. Many times those arrests are illegal, but you have never seen that the people of the police personnel getting prosecuted for that arrest because they have a justification. They have a right to do something. Suppose as a teacher, suppose a moderate punishment is given by a teacher to the student, you go outside the class. Perfectly fine. There is a justification behind it. There can be justification is there when you have a right to do something. Like every private person, even an ordinary person, has a right to arrest someone who commits a crime. Suppose I see somebody committing a crime and I go and arrest that person. You see, there is a. I generally take this example. It's a very interesting example. There is a very famous Hindi Bollywood movie known as Golmaal. Golmaal. There is Ajay Devgan and there are Arshad Varsi, Tushar Kapoor and all. They are there and Shraman Joshi. Those four actors are there in the Golmaal, original Golmaal. What happens that they were actually they're doing an illegal act in the sense that they were looking inside the room of a girl and they see some kind of struggle going on and the girl saying bachao bachao and all. So they just tried to intervene and they beat the people up and simply they tried to rescue the girl. And the girl then says, yeah, what kind of idiot you are. You There was a shooting going on, it was rehearsal or something like that. So obviously when they did that there was a justification, because if some illegal act is going on, there is a justification to intervene. Although there was no illegal act going on, but if there would have been, obviously mistake of fact is another aspect of it. Lekin if something illegal is happening, it is perfectly all right for any person to intervene. So there can be n number of acts which you have right to do. If you have right to do something, it cannot be considered a crime. It is considered as justified act, justified by law. So nothing is an offense which a person is justified by law to do. So if there is a legal right of doing something, you had a legal right to do something, it cannot be considered a crime. Even though it might be considered an annoyance to other people, it is not an offense until and unless it can be shown that you had no right to do it. If you have a right to do it, absolutely fine. So it's something what we call justified by law. Okay. Now let's come on to another aspect, Judicial Act. Now, what is Judicial Act? A Judicial Act, as say, there can be two aspects of Judicial Act. Number one, acts done by a judicial officer. Judicial officer means a judge. A judge, and who is a judge? Somebody who is designated a judge by the government, not some random things like XYZ के अदालत आप judged by Rajat Sharma. No, they're not judges. The people who are sitting there are not judges. They are the mock court. Judge is someone who has been given an authority by the government to adjudicate a matter and pronounce a judgment. If they can pronounce a binding judgment and they have been notified by the government, in that case, it will be considered, that person will be considered as a judge. So, if a person is a judge and he does an act in judicial capacity, while acting judicially, means while sitting on the chair of the judge, not necessarily sitting, but as a judge, if he does something that is exempted from the uh, clutches of criminal law. Very simple example. Let's say, excuse me, I'm very sorry. Okay, so excuse me. So what I was saying is that if a judge is acting judicially, judicially means that if he is acting as a judge, means while he is in his judicial capacity, means whatever matters have come in front of him as per law, and in which he decided something as per law, then whatever the consequence be, he will not be punished for his actions. There is also a interesting legislation called Judicial Officers Protection Act 1850. It's a very old legislation, but it's a very relevant legislation. Judicial officers are protected for whatever they do. For example, very simple. Suppose a judge gave a punishment of death penalty to someone. That person was given death sentence. Later, some DNA testing or some video evidence comes that that person was not guilty. Will you punish that judge? The answer is no. A judge has no liability at all for whatever he does as a judge. A number of mistakes can be done by a judge when he is deliberating on a matter. Judge is a human. That is why we have a system of appeal, that multiple judges should review a matter in order to pronounce a very definitive kind of judgment. Suppose lower court gave you punishment, you can appeal to high court. High court, so you can appeal to Supreme Court. So there'll be no error in law. We try to minimize. Obviously, still, despite that, errors can happen. But that is why that error is not considered to be the to be the fault of judge, and the judge is not punished for his actions. Okay, that is very important. A judge is not punished for the actions while what he did as a judge. Okay, so this is very important to understand. Now, another question comes, but all the actions of a judge are not beyond criminal law. It is not true to say that every action of a judge is exempted. जज एग्जेम्प्टेड नहीं है, उसके जुडिशियल एक्ट्स एग्जेम्प्टेड है। मतलब अगर आपने जज रहते हुए आपने जज की तरह एक्ट करते हुए कोई काम किया तो ऑब्वियसली यू आर एग्जेम्प्टेड फॉर दैट। बट इफ यू एक्टेड आउटसाइड जुडिशियल कैपेसिटी, like you killed someone, obviously that was not something within your judicial capacity. Like you cheated in exam. There is a case in Allahabad in which a judicial officer, a judge was there, who was also doing his masters in law. And while doing his masters in exam, he was cheating, and he was caught by the invigilator. He said, "I am a judge, so I should not be prosecuted." Now the High Court said, "No, you are not a judge. You are not a judge because you were not a judge when you were giving that exam. You are not within your judicial authority. You are acting outside judicial authority. So when you act outside the judicial authority, you do not get any protection of a judge. You will be punished if you acted beyond your capacity. If you acted plainly illegally, then your actions will be considered as punishable. Okay. So जज की तरह एक्ट करते हुए अगर उसने कोई भी कुछ भी किया है, obviously he can order anything, he can give punishment to someone, he can order, he can jail someone. Suppose there is a judge who sends a wrong person to jail. Now the question is whether that judge will be punished for the offense of wrongful confinement. The answer is no. Normally, if you confine somebody without authority of law, that is punishable. But if a judge illegally confines someone, then suppose judge even had enmity with that person and judge sent him to jail illegally. मतलब in illegal in the sense that judge judge's motivations were not pure. So whether judge will be punished? Answer is no, because he acted judicially. Mean he acted within the scope of his judicial authority. He might have taken a bribe. He might have been. He might have done anything illegal. His motivations might not be pure. He might be acting on personal vendetta. Still, that judge will not be punished for his judicial acts. Means act done as a judge. Whatever he does in personal capacity, he took bribe for that. He'll be punished. Whatever he did in his private capacity, he'll be punished for that. But whatever he did as a judge, he will not be punished. That is generally considered to be the rule. Okay. Obviously, if you are giving judgments because of your personal vendetta or something like that, then obviously the repercussions are there. Obviously, then judiciary will itself will try and punish you in other ways. But so judicial acts are exempted. Nothing is an offense if done by a judge while acting judicially. Similarly, similar exception, similar protection is also given to a person who is executing the order of the court. Executing means who is following the orders of the court. If court issues a warrant against someone and asks the police person, you go and arrest. If the police person goes and arrests that person, and that person was an innocent person, he proves that okay, I was an innocent person, the judge was wrong in issuing a warrant against me. Whether that police person will be punished? The answer is no. Just like judge will not be punished for his order, the person who follows the order of the judge will also not be punished. Even that act might be illegal. Means the judge gave death penalty to someone, and there is an executioner, there is a jallad who actually gives death penalty. Suppose later it is revealed that the person was innocent. Whether that jallad will be punished? Answer is no, because he was acting in pursuance of a judicial order. If court say asks you to do something, you do it without question. And that is something that we expect from law enforcement agency. Do you expect a police person to go deep into? Acha, there is also a very simple rule that if an act is blatantly illegal, देखिए जो लीगली बाउंड बाय लॉ है, जुडिशियल ऑफिसर के एक्ट है, या दोज हु आर एक्टिंग इन परसुएंस ऑफ जुडिशियल ऑर्डर है, they are all exempted provided what they were doing is not patently, clearly illegal. Like I'll give you an example. Let's say there is you are a soldier and your superior officer takes you to railway station and he asks you that there are random persons moving, you fire. Will you open fire? Answer is no. You'll say, "Oh, there are innocent people, there are people moving, why I'll fire?" You will presume that the person who is giving you the order has gone insane. You will not do that, obviously. If you do that, you will be punished because the law will say that the order was patently illegal, completely illegal. Even it had no gray, it was not gray or it was not black and white. No, it was simply illegal. You cannot obey an order that is patently illegal. Suppose there is a judge who gives a punishment कि भाई इस चोर के हाथ काट दो, and the police person goes and he cuts the hand of the person. Whether that police person is protected, answer is no. Whether that judge is protected, the answer is no. Because cannot do something which is patently illegal. Patently मतलब प्रत्यक्ष स्पष्ट शब्दों में illegal नहीं होना चाहिए वो, है ना? The person who are executing the order of a judge are not expected to know that what are the nuances of law, but every person must have this sense of general right and wrong. Suppose judge gives an order that go and rape the wife of the accused is a rapist, so you go and rape his wife so that he will know how it feels like. Now that is something, do you believe that any police officer will follow, any jail authority will actually obey that? Answer is no. They will say the Sam has gone mad. We are not bound to follow, which is something which is patently, clearly illegal. So that is something very important. Acting judicially, even if you are bound, justified to do something, if it is clearly illegal, spasht illegal hai, in that case, you are not subject to follow it. If you follow it, you are not exempted. Yeah? See, this is called Nuremberg defense. Uh, I'll let's stray for a moment or so. See, when the Hitler's generals, those who are powerful, who are in powerful position in Hitler administration, when they were prosecuted, this is the argument that they made. Ki, sir, we were killing the Jews because our boss said so. So the court said, see, fine, if the boss says so, you can do any act, but if it is so patently illegal, means if it's so unethical, immoral, inhuman, you are not supposed to follow your boss. Even if you followed Hitler, who was the at that time Chancellor of Germany, and you killed this many Jews, you built concentration camp, and you killed a lot of these people. You cannot say, sir, I was following the orders of my boss. If the boss, same logic applies. If the boss tells you to jump off a bridge, will you jump off a bridge? Answer is no. So similarly, if your boss tells you to do something which is patently illegal, will you do that? The answer is again no. That is something that we have to keep in mind. Okay. So I hope this makes it a little bit clear. Then moving on. Again, a very interesting topic. That is mistake of fact. Mistake of fact is a very simple understanding. If someone is legally bound by a law to do something, or he does that act by mistake of fact. Mistake is a very interesting kind of defense. It says that suppose you did something illegal, thinking it to be legal. In that case, whether you will be punished or not, you thought it to be legal, but actually it was illegal. Just like in that case, that those गोलमाल में वो चारों लोगों ने जा करके वहां पे मार कुटाई कर दी, thinking it to be a situation where that girl was getting sexually assaulted. Answer is, if it were a real situation, they will not be punished. Suppose because what they thought was what they thought that they were doing was actually legal. उनने जो सोचा वो उनके हिसाब से सही था. So obviously this is very important to understand that if I was mistaken by a fact and I was misled by a particular fact, what I thought was legal, in that case, my liability will not be there. Like I'll give you an example. Just like you take soldier's example. I am a soldier. A person comes to me who is wearing a uniform of the military, and he has a his has a stars on his shoulders and everything, and he acts very much bona fide. He looks like an army officer, talks like an army officer. He addresses me and he asks me to support him in doing a particular act, and I do that. And suppose he was not an actually army and officer and I was misled. He was cheating me by impersonating a military officer. So whether my actions will be illegal? The answer is no. I have not done something illegal because I was under a mistake of fact. I was mistaken about a fact that this person is my superior. Now, many of you must have watched that particular movie, Special 26. Are you aware? Yeah, right. Remember, it's a very famous movie of Akshay Kumar probably was there. So, Special 26, if you can remember, if you're not watched, you can watch it. So, that's a decent movie. So, in the plot of Special 26 was that there are few people who actually were scamsters and they impersonated fake CBI teams. And they used to go to the corrupt ministers and officials and they used to conduct fake CBI raids. And before anybody could know what is happening, they used to simply take the loot and go away. So in those cases, let's say a police personnel and a security officer assisted them in committing the rape, in committing that particular robbery. It is essentially a robbery. It's essentially robbery. So in that case, whether those police personnel, those police officers, those security officers will be held liable under the law, the answer is no, because by mistake of fact, they considered that what they were doing is they were either bound by law or justified by law in helping those CBI officials. So it was based on a very actual case in which those those fraudsters, they impersonated CBI, income tax, sales tax teams, and they committed robberies all over India. And they impersonated those officers, and they often took the help of local police as well for committing their crime. So, mistake of fact in that case is a very important aspect. To take a few more examples, let's say there is a person um who is there in the jungle and he sees that somebody is coming towards him. Something is coming towards him. He sees the the wind and there is a and he suspects that there is a hyena. Now एक लकड़बग्गा है उसकी तरफ आ रहा है and he becomes very frightened because that was a particular the jungle. It was night time. So obviously he had all the reasons to get frightened. So he fired a bullet towards that particular hyena that he thought लकड़बग्गा उसे लगा था. But that was actually a person. So the question is that whether he will be punished for the same. The answer is no, because if you thought it to be lakadabagga and you had reasons to believe that it is a lakadabagga, in that case you will not be punished even if that turns out to be a human. So I think it is the intention that is punished, not what the things were actually there. What were the actual circumstances? You'll be punished for your understanding of it. So if I was under a mistake of fact, there is a very interesting case of Odisha. That there is a case of a Gurkha um, servant. There was a particular Seth who had a Gurkha servant, and the Seth reached a particular village, and सबने उनको village में समझाया कि भाई you do not travel from this village to another village at night time because there are ghosts in between. इस गांव से उस रास्ते के बीच में there is a jungle, and in jungle there are many ghosts. So be very cautious. This person was educated. He said there is no ghost, nothing like that. Where we will go. So when she was moving through that jungle along with his Gurkha servant, he heard the noise of some women giggling. हंस रही हैं कोई महिलाएं. There are sounds of anklets and chudis are there, and they were the bracelets. They were making a sound, and there were women, and there was a flickering light. कहीं पर रोशनी बिल्कुल फ्लिकर कर रही है, जल बुझ रही है. And obviously everybody in the village warned them that the ghosts है रात में वहाँ पे, तो there are भूत प्रेत है वहाँ पे पीपल के पेड़ के पास. So this person got convinced that there's ghost there. But the servant along the person who was with him, the servant was a Gurkha servant, and obviously Gurkhas are venerated, are very known for their bravery. So this Gurkha servant, he took out his kukri, is a curved knife, special to Gurkhas, and he attacked the the source of that sound. And he thought he was attacking ghosts, and he attacked indiscriminately. He waved his kukri, and immediately people started shouting. People ran towards that place from the village and the surrounding areas, and it came to know that there are certain women who was actually collecting mahua के पत्ते. वो लोग शायद बीन रहे, they were taking mahua leaves because it was a restricted forest, and they were doing that in night. And there was a lantern in the on the tree, and because of movement of the tree, it had a flickering effect. And because those women were talking, and obviously they were wearing bracelets and chudis, there was a sound. So one woman was killed and two other women were injured, and this Gurkha servant was prosecuted for murder. The court said that in this situation, he made a mistake. He made a mistake means he thought there were ghosts at that place. So obviously, what he did, he had no intention of killing those women, but in his mind, he was attacking the ghosts. So in that case, there was no liability. Obviously, you can ask, "Sir, कि ghost में विश्वास रखना is," but you will have to again go by the standard prudent person test, what we call a standard a reasonability idea. So if you were as educated at that survey, and obviously this is an old case where large number of people, 99% of people believed in existence of ghost and all. So what a reasonable or ordinary person would have thought in that circumstance when that particular Gurkha servant made that decision to attack? The answer is yes, everybody would have thought that there are ghosts there. Anybody would have thought. I'm not sure how many of us would have thought so, but I believe overwhelming number of people will be still believe in ghosts. And obviously, everybody in the village said so, and they also saw that flickering lights and women giggling and all. That's all very suspicious. So in that case, he was acquitted. He was not held guilty. He was given the benefit of this mistake of fact point. So if you are mistaken about a particular fact, you will not be held liable. Okay. So suppose I bought 1 kg salt from a shop, and I bought that thinking it to be salt for 20 rupees a kg, and later it turned out to be cocaine. So I will not be held liable if I can prove that I truly, honestly believed that white powder to be salt. I will not be held liable because that will be considered a mistake of fact. And this mistake of fact has to be distinguished from what we call mistake of law. It means that law is a rule made by the government. Obviously, the authorities have made a rule, that is a law. So suppose a person says, "Kisi, I was not aware about the law." That is not a defense. It means you cannot say in the front of the court कि सर मुझे ये नहीं पता था कि ये illegal था या legal. I was unaware about the illegality of my actions. It will not protect you in a criminal prosecution. You will be punished. It will not be a legitimate ground to say that the, I was unaware whether my actions are illegal or illegal. Like सरकार ने लगाया है आप पर टैक्स 20%, और आप सरकार को 5% टैक्स देते हैं, ये कह के सर मुझको लगा कि 5% टैक्स ही बनता है मेरा, तो कितना टैक्स लगेगा, दैट इज अ लॉ, दैट इज नॉट अ फैक्ट. फैक्ट एंड लॉ में क्या डिफरेंस है बच्चों? लॉ इज समथिंग दैट इज, लॉ इज अ रूल मेड बाय द गवर्नमेंट एंड यू कैन नॉट से कि आई वाज अनअवेयर ऑफ दैट रूल. दैट इज अ प्रिजम्पशन दैट एवरीबडी नोज ऑल द लॉ. सबको सारे लॉ पता है. दिस इज अ वेरी absurd kind of presumption, but that is a presumption that we have. In Indian law, whenever government makes any law, it is presumed that everybody becomes aware of that law. सबको सारा कानून पता है. Now, even a chief justice will not know any laws. There are 5,000 central legislation. There are 10 lakhs and lakhs of state legislation. There are more than 50,000 Supreme Court judgments, 60, 70 lakh judgments of the High Court. Who can remember all that? No. But it is presumed because the moment we start acknowledging this defense कि मुझको कानून का पता नहीं था, then nobody will get punished. Simply everyone say, sir, I committed the murder, but I didn't know murdering was wrong. I thought it was right. So it's very difficult to prove that whether the person knew about the legality of his act or not. So that is why we have this presumption that everybody knows all the law. You cannot say कि सर मुझको कानून नहीं पता था. Now, there is a foreigner. There is a famous case of M.H. George, what we say, in which what happened is a foreigner, he was flying from Zurich to Manila, Philippines, and Zurich, I believe, is in Switzerland. And he was flying from that, and his flight was supposed to land in India for some time. It was a break flight, and his flight was supposed to land in India and then go all the way back to Manila. So what happened? The Indian law had a rule that everybody who is carrying gold beyond a particular limit will have to sign a form, will have to give a declaration that I have this much gold, I'm bringing this much gold to India. That person was unaware of this law and he bought a lot of gold to India. We arrested him. Now that person said, Ki, sir, I was unaware of the law. I am a foreigner first. Plus, I was not coming to India. I just came in India because my flight landed in India and I was supposed to go to Philippines. So I should not be punished. The court said no. Because you didn't know the law, that is not a defense. आपको कानून पता नहीं था, ये कोई डिफेंस नहीं है. आपको लाइबल किया जाएगा, है ना? If you are mistaken about the fact, that is fine. Like I'll give you an example. Very simple example. Suppose, first of all, let's see. You are aware that there is a bird called crow, kawa hai, and there is a cuckoo bird, koel, and both are identical by looks. You know, identical as per the looks are considered as both are black and they look very similar. Okay, and crow is a ordinary bird, while cuckoo bird is a endangered species. Now you cannot see cuckoo bird a lot these days, so it's endangered species. This much is clear. So let's say you are a forest officer, and a person comes to you, and he has certain birds with him, and he hunted certain birds, and you, because you are an expert in that field, you came to know that these are cuckoo birds, which is illegal for a person to kill. So you asked him, what you are taking? He says that these are crows. I just hunted them for fun. I was testing my air gun. I killed these crows. Now the question is, this is the first circumstance. Second circumstance, he comes and he says to you, these are quail birds, and you say to him that these are endangered species. It's illegal for you to harm these cuckoo birds. And he says, I was not aware of any such rule. I was not knowing that killing these cuckoo birds is wrong. So the question is whether the liability will be same in both the circumstances or it will be different. To answer it, very simple. In the first case, where he thought it to be crows, and he was unaware that that bird was a cuckoo bird, that person will not be punished.